over. Okay, we're going to feel like we're...
Now it's good. Sorry.
Oh, no, don't be sorry. Hello, everybody. This is Randi Thompson coming to you live with the movers and shakers of the horse world. Tonight we're so excited to share our guest, Liv Gude of the Professional Equestrian Grooms. And we chose to use the Google Hangouts because they're an adventure. We have a lot of fun and we get to explore everything that we're doing with it. If you look at the top left of your screen, you'll see a blue box. Roll your mouse over it. That's the chat. Carol Trimboli Aldridge will be manning the chat, so she'll be there to answer your questions, and she'll be sharing links as we go through the process. You can ask her any of the questions that you have, and she'll pass those on to you. Keep your microphones. If you look on the top, you can see where you can mute yourself, or we'll mute you until the end of the session, then we'll open it up for everybody. So, as I said before, we're very proud to introduce to you Liv Gude of the Professional Equine Grooms. And Liv, as I was asking you before, what is it that started you on the path of becoming a professional equestrian groom?
It was an accident, really. I was getting my MBA, and I needed to get away from the computer and working on my thesis. And I was at the tack store one day, and there was an ad for a part-time groom, and I applied for it, and it turned out it was for Gunter. So I talked my way into that job with zero experience.
Now, most people don't know who Gunter is. Would you?
Oh, I thought everybody knew who Gunter is. He's Gunter Seidel. He is a 3-time Olympic bronze medalist for dressage, based out of Rancho Santa Fe, California. And that's how he got started as a groom all those years ago. That was in 06, I think it was. Yep, 06.
It's quite a change to step. You know, a lot of people don't understand what professional grooms do or what the difference is. And I didn't know what they were like you when I started doing that. It's a whole different world. And we stepped right in with the gods of the industry. Mine was a hunter-jumper god, and yours was like a god. That's what we call them, a god of dressage. So as you went through your career, you said you started working with him. Amazing. You even got a job with him, because I know he's picky about the grooms he hired, so you must be pretty good. But
apparently I talked a good game. So, and we get along very well personally, so that helps as well.
It takes more than a good talking game to be able to get a job with these guys. So you must have had something really good about you. Since you've started with the Professional Equestrian Grooms, I've noticed, you know, like I said, we started out and you questioned people whether you should even start it, and then you had this inspiration. Your heart told you needed to do it, and you actually started this. How did you go about getting it started, and what have you done to get to where you are now?
Well, it was really grassroots, and I'm being video bombed here. This is Orange. He's probably going to be back a little bit later.
That's all right. I have a couple hiding back here somewhere,
yeah.
too.
I put together a Facebook page before I ever put up a website, just to see if there was any interest in people wanting to learn how to become a groom, because I think that's, for me, that's what brings awareness to my larger goal, and that's to really have grooms be respected in the horse industry. But in order for that to happen, people need to understand, A, what we know, B, how we do it, and C, what the conditions are really like and what the laws are like and how they're not always followed and things like that. So it's basically been a grassroots, chip away, every day, talk to people, every day communicate with people, every day share knowledge with people, and it's grown and grown and grown and grown. And it's helped a little bit by the fact that I can do a lot of freelance writing, and that helps spread the word. And now I just kind of have this, you know, reputation, and that's nice. That's nice to have that sort of respect and understanding and things like that.
You've worked hard to get that.
Yeah, it's
if people go to her website, Pro Equine Grooms, you will see there's an entire library of articles that she's written about grooming. I mean, you must spend
over 500 articles.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a lot of them there. Now you've also received a lot of publicity, and you've been doing shows, like you've been invited to do the Equine Affair and that type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I just finished on the Horse Expo here on the West Coast, and then I'm hopefully going to be at the Equine Affair in Massachusetts at the end of the year, and we'll see what happens next year.
Oh,
you never know.
Yes. Kim just put a message up there. That's interesting. I didn't know that the Hangouts did that. Kim put a message. She remembers also when you started your Facebook page. So do I.
Oh, yeah, that was forever. That was in January of 2011.
Right. Isn't that interesting how we remember those times? So tell us some of your background about horses before you became a groom for one of the top dressage competitors in the world.
Well, I grew up in Virginia riding the hunters. And in the summers, we competed them, and in the winters, we fox hunted them. And I did that forever and ever and ever. And then in undergraduate school, I rode reiners and cutters because I was living in Texas, and that's what I did. And after college, wow, moved to California, got a young horse of my own. He was 5 when I got him. And trained him for the hunters, and then trained him for everything else. We do a little bit of everything. And that kind of sums it up. And then, of course, you know, when you work for Olympic dressage riders, you also learn dressage. So I have that under my belt, too.
Is that how you got into dressage?
Yeah, my first dressage lesson was with Gunter on my quarter horse in an all-purpose saddle. And I was wearing a striped polo shirt because I knew I always wear a polo shirt. Always, always, always.
Oh, that's
but stripes on. And Gunter didn't tell me he was going to give me a lesson that day. He just said, I have an opening at 10:30. Just come in the ring on your horse. And I was like, okay. So I show up, and he says to me, as he's handing me the earpiece, he says, and for the next lesson, don't wear stripes. Okay. Come to find out, though, years later, because I still tease him about it, it's because it shows, it can warp the alignment of your shoulders and your back, and it's for him when he's looking at your equitation.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, you've had quite a history with horses. So you have a horse now?
I have 2.
Oh. And you ride them both dressage?
Yes. Miguel they're both the models for the website. You'll see them scattered all over the website. Miguel is the big gray. He's a retired Grand Prix horse. So I rode him Grand Prix for 6 years before I retired him. And then my other horse is the young one that I still have him. It's been 12 years now that I've had him.
Grand Prix, quite the level to get up to Grand Prix. For those who don't know, by the time you're doing Grand Prix and dressage, they're doing lead changes every stride.
Yes, sometimes on purpose and sometimes accidentally.
Isn't that the truth?
Yes. Among other things, like, very, very collected pirouettes, and the thing about, the Grand Prix is it's the level of collection is very, very high. And, I had a teacher always tell me that when you're doing a pirouette, you better imagine that you're doing your test on a dinner plate and not in a dressage arena, because that's how big it is. It's the size of a dinner plate.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
lots
right.
of words of having that.
For those of you who don't know what a pirouette is, it's like a turn around the haunches where the horse canters around their back feet on the spot. So that's what a canter pirouette is that she's talking about. Describe a typical day for you. What do you normally do every day?
A day now or a day when I was a groom?
Well, we know what the days like grooms are. Let's talk about what a day for a groom is like, because people don't realize how hard grooms are working. What were your days like?
Well, I started at 5:30 or 6, feeding grain, taking off wraps, taking TPRs of all the horses. That's temp pulse respiration. Then Gunter would get on at 7. So I had, roughly an hour or so to do all of that. Maybe we had 9 to 12 horses in the barn at any given time.
How many grooms?
Yeah, 2 grooms. So we had like 6 apiece. It's a lot. So, we'd feed and check legs and do TPR for all the horses, and then time to unlock everything, get all your tack out for the morning, and then get your first horse ready by 7. And he would say 7, but Gutre time is really 6:45. So he was usually pulling up and strolling to the cross ties as we're like, we have 15 more minutes. So then we'd have to have the first horse ready, and it wasn't like he would just knock the shavings off and throw a saddle on. This was like, he better be clean enough to go into the Olympics every single day. Period.
Oh yes. Did he ever did he do the white hanky test on him?
No. He did one day pull out a piece of shavings from a mane and looked at me, and he kind of flicked it at me, and he said, never do that again. And I actually told him, now granted, we have a very good relationship, and we joked around all the time, and I knew he was joking, so I said to him, why don't you warm up at the gallop and then see if all the shavings blow out? So anyway, so a typical day continues. So he would have maybe 3 or 4 horses to ride in the morning, and then a couple of lessons to teach, but all the horses got out 2 or 3 times a day. So they'd go get ridden, they'd come back, he'd get on the next one, then we'd untack, clean tack, ice the legs, bathe the horse, put him away, get the next one, so on and so forth. Then there were some retired horses that needed medication, they needed to go out in the paddocks, they needed to go on the walker, but basically everybody got out 2 or 3 times a day, and every time they got out, they were groomed. Every time you put them away, they were groomed. So they came out to be ridden, they came out to be hand walked, they came out for pasture turnout. Times anywhere between 9 and 12 horses for 2 people. We usually finished around 5 or so.
Really?
Yeah, and that's on a day when there was no vet, no farrier.
So
everything was totally normal, which never happens. No saddle fitter, no massage therapist.
And
no.
7 days a week?
We worked 6 days a week, but
there were 6 days.
Yeah, but Gunter would take a day off, and that was kind of like the day everybody could catch up on. That's the day where we'd take the tack room, everything out of it, clean the tack room, polish the floors. Same with the feed room. That's the day we would scrub stall walls and things like that. But everybody's still getting out 3 times a day.
I know some of you listening have probably never heard of anybody taking care of horses like this, but this is what happens in the high-end barns and stuff. They get very picky about everything that happens with their horses.
Well, the difference between a performance horse and a non-performance horse is that they are super fit.
Yes.
Super fit. And they have energy requirements that are light years beyond, your average run-of-the-mill. Even my horses don't have the kind of energy requirements that these performance horses do. So they're getting an awful lot of calories. They have an awful lot of energy to burn off. And in order to be in peak physical condition for showing, they have to be sound and healthy. And the only way to do that is to move them around. But you have to balance the risk of letting them be in a paddock with them slipping, running wild, things like that, which is why there's a lot of hand walking involved. It's conditioning. I
think that's important. That's a good point you bring up, because a lot of people don't understand how the fusion circuits at that level, they don't normally have turnout spaces for horses. So the grooms the horses are always being physically active and grazing at times.
Yeah, absolutely. In Southern California, real estate is ridiculously expensive if you can even find it, and to have a barn with facilities for 2-acre pastures, it just doesn't exist. So you have to do the best with what you can in the physical space, and still have the amenities that you need to have these highly fit athletic horses, because it's not, these horses are in a way very similar to the horses on the racetrack. They're athletes. They're absolutely fit beyond your wildest dreams, and it takes a lot to maintain them, and that was the groom's job. So, Carol, I don't know, something just happened. It's like Randi accidentally left.
It looks like she did. Oh,
I'm here. I'm here again. Here I am.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay, cool. Thanks.
Yay.
Sorry about that. Who knows what's happening tonight? You know, we've had a lot of storms up here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know what those are.
So, yeah, a lot of power outages out. I didn't lose my power. So, now that you're working with the pro equestrian grooms, a lot of things have probably changed. What do you do now on a typical day, now that your focus is a little different? Because you still work for Gunter, but you're also running a big organization.
No, he wishes I still worked for him.
I
actually don't work for Gunter. I only work for myself now.
Oh.
And, yeah, my day starts with dessert. Now that I don't work for anybody else, I can manage the day that I want to have, and I choose to eat dessert first. So I go to the barn first and have my quality time with my horses to ride and relax. But that also allows me to get inspired by, hey, I've got this kind of issue. I wonder if other people have this. Maybe that's something I could do some research on and write about and share with my audience.
Yes.
Because I also use my horses as demo and models for the website, I'm often with my camera taking pictures of them, whether they like it or not. And sometimes I just sit and hang out with the other ladies at the barn. And then when I get home is when I can sit down and plan out the social media posting, write the articles, talk to my clients. You know, what do you need? How are things going? And focus on getting my educational message from the website out there. So, you know, I'll work on SEO, I'll work on, you know, new articles, maybe putting together a video or something like that. And then I'm done when I'm done. Much like when I was a groom. I was just done when I was done.
How many hours a day do you think you're spending on social media?
How much what?
How many hours a day do you spend on social media?
You know, I used to spend a lot on social media, and then I started really studying, about 2 years ago, I started really studying the amount of traffic, because for me, because I'm a website, I measure my success in how much traffic I have, because that dictates, you know, what I can charge for, you know, this and that service, depending on how popular you are, basically. It's a giant popularity contest. So I started measuring, you know, how much time I was spending on the different social media sites versus how much traffic they were getting me. And over the course of the past, you know, 2 years, I've cut my social media use to, you know, maybe an hour a day across all the platforms. 45 minutes, an hour a day.
And are you doing auto posting? Are you doing a lot of that?
I will on Facebook. For the other platforms, because I linked Twitter to Facebook, that, you know, they kind of auto post at the same time.
Yeah,
but for Pinterest, you know, when I'm watching the evening news and a commercial goes on, I'll get on Pinterest and play with that for a little bit.
Now you've really taken over Pinterest with what you're doing. Can you tell a little bit about Pinterest? I know some people have heard of it, but it's like, how would somebody that has professional equestrian grooms be able to use something like that to promote what you're doing?
Well, you know, Pinterest for me, I think of it as Twitter with pictures. You know, with Facebook, I have a huge audience with Facebook, but Facebook determines who sees what, you know, because of all of their algorithms and things like that. With Twitter, if you post it, you know everybody that follows you is going to have it in their feed, but their feed is lightning fast and it moves, and you're there for 8 minutes max, and then you're out of the feed.
Right.
With Pinterest, it's visual Twitter, because it's like Twitter in that when I post something, I know every single one of my followers on Pinterest can see it. Whereas on Facebook, only the people that Facebook allows to see it can see it. So I found that even with 1/10 of the followers on Pinterest that I have, I'm getting 40% website traffic from Pinterest versus 11% from Facebook.
Oh,
So I have 1/10 of the followers, but I'm getting 4 times the traffic. And I use it maybe for 8 minutes a day. So that's where I choose to spend my time.
Kim has a question for you. She wants to know if you're also using Instagram.
I am on Instagram. That is the only personal account that I have, and that is for like 3 of my close friends and my husband, and that's it. I haven't yet opened Instagram up to the company. That's something that I haven't done for 2 reasons. One, I really like keeping Instagram completely private for me. It's the one last place for my close friends and I. The other reason is their platform is not laptop or desktop friendly. And I find that, typing an extended message with a bunch of hashtags on my phone is really, really not fun. So that's why I'm kind of on the fence about Instagram. But, the data suggests that because it's a largely popular platform, more popular now than Pinterest, that maybe I'll give it a go, but I'm not sure how it's going to drive the traffic to my site.
There's so many choices in social media, it's enough to make us dizzy.
Yes, there are.
Well, let me ask you, there's your cat.
I'm toying with the idea of putting up some sort of social media site that is for my followers to know more about me as a person without getting into the very personal things that I would share with my friends or my husband, just to give my name and reputation a little bit more of a personal feel. So I'm toying with that idea, and I'm toying with doing it on Instagram.
Oh.
Just because it's easy, if I'm at, the gym or at a restaurant or something, I'd be like, hey, I'm eating super healthy today. I wonder if my horse would like to share this salad too. And
so everybody knows, she's also a yoga queen. She does yoga on horses.
I do. I can't help myself. And the funny thing is, the horse that I do my yoga on is my crazy one. But when I do yoga on him, he is not the crazy one.
Who would have thought? And those of you who know yoga know they do all kinds of positions. So she's actually on top of her horse's back doing the yoga positions.
Well, yeah, and arm balances and handstands are my favorite. And so that's what I like to practice on the horses. And if you'll excuse me for just a minute, my cat is on the counter, and I just need to go get him. I'll be right back.
Good. Well, it's interesting.
I don't want to yell at him, while this is live, so I'm just going to go, oh, never mind.
And my cats are sweetly just sleeping down there in the chair.
Yeah.
For now.
So anyway, Kim, those were my thoughts on Instagram. But it is a really, really neat platform, mainly because it's visual, and, people don't like to read a whole lot. They'd rather look at a picture and read a little bit. So that sometimes can help. But Pinterest, for me, that's my main traffic driver social media-wise right now.
Yeah, and I've been putting my videos there, but I'm not into it like you are yet. But I've been getting responses even though I'm not responding with anybody. Here we have, this is new with the Hangouts. I didn't realize anybody who chats, whoever chats on the chat, your messages actually turn on the screen, which is really cool to be able to watch. I just missed that question, though. Yeah.
No, Kim said that I think she said Instagram was not so good for some people, but really good for others. Right. I think it just depends on, what you're putting into it, really, is what you're going to get out of it.
Any of the networks. they can take up all of our time. Well, so let me ask you this then. What do you like most about what you're doing now? Because it's almost like you're starting to live your dreams.
You know, what I like most about it is that I have freedom now that I never had when I worked for anybody else, and that includes when I was working in corporate offices, you know, in my 20s and early 30s. And it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, as those of us that work for ourselves understand.
Yes.
It's sometimes feast or famine, but if I want to take off, you know, on a Thursday morning to go sit on the beach, then I'm going to take off on a Thursday morning to go sit on the beach. I'll be working on Sunday night to make up for it, but that's the best part for me, is that I have that flexibility now.
It does make a difference. And like you say, we're still working 60, 80-hour weeks on the average, I think, just because we love what we're doing.
We're just doing it on when it's convenient for our schedules.
Right. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
What are some of the typical challenges that you encounter day to day as you go through trying to fit your new career with the professional equestrian grooms in with your lifestyle now?
There are none.
Isn't that cool?
It really is cool.
So the biggest challenge for you now is your marketing and being able to get out there where you have more and more. Now, let me ask you, now we're going into the marketing just a little bit. Do people become a member if they want of the Pro Equine Groom? How do they get involved in it? Is it a non-membership thing, or how does it work?
It's a non-membership, and really it's just what it's evolved into is a giant encyclopedia of everything that I ever learned about being a horse groom is translated from a head onto the computer, so that information is there so that anybody with a horse and a dilemma can have a place to start to figure out, what can I do, who do I need to talk to, what are some possible reasons for this, what are some possible solutions.
You cover a lot of things. You have everything in there, from ice packing the horse's foot into grooming their tails and everything. It's very well. You could turn all of your articles into a book, but you probably already thought of that.
I did. I already have it outlined. I'm looking for a publisher.
Oh, cool. Oh, you never know who might be watching.
I know. We'll see what happens. Highest bidder only. Just kidding.
But, well, that's the way you have to be, because you can be selective. You get to the point where you are allowed to be selective. So what are the future plans that you have for the professional equestrian grooms?
Oh, you just said it. Book.
Yep, the book. Oh, see? Psychic intuition.
Yeah.
That's
I realize the more I say book, the more A, I have to actually do it, and the more B, it becomes more real when you verbalize those types of grand plans. So that's for sure.
A lot more trade shows now too. You're enjoying doing the trade show thing and the speaking?
Yeah, that's actually been kind of that was really interesting. I did that a couple of years ago at the Horse Expo, and then I skipped a couple of years, and then I did it again. So it was nice to revisit that. And then there's been some interest from Equine Affair, of course, which is, on the other coast for me, which is nice because it opens up the possibility of travel. And, it's been a long time since I've been to Boston. So, I like to, if I am traveling, I like to kind of combine work into, stay an extra day or two to see the city and get a little mini vacation from, being in my home office and staring at the same four walls and, the computer. It's a little variety. It kind of mixes things up.
What's the most favorite place you've ever been to so far?
Oh, Costa Rica.
Oh.
That was vacation.
How long were you there?
10 days. Yeah, it was amazing. I didn't work for 10 days straight. And I was really worried that my traffic was going to drop off because I wasn't tending to it every day, and I was pleasantly surprised. I'd reached a point where it can carry itself, which is amazing.
It is. It's like they don't miss us when we leave.
Well, I'm sure some people missed me, but the internet traffic did not miss me.
Oh, the traffic, right?
So it was, yeah, it was really fun.
Huh.
It was really fun.
Well, what would you say are the main benefits that you give to people that become a part of what you do? Because you're like a movement that's happened out there. As I said before, being in the grooming before, I realized that grooms are basically unprotected. They work in agriculture. They work long hours. Most grooms don't start out at the levels that we did. They're working long hours, long days for low wages, and the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, it can be fairly atrocious, but you know, a lot of people are cynical now about the horse industry, and they don't believe things will ever change, which is unfortunate. But I think the key to having things change is to educate as many people as I can, and that includes the employers as well as the employees. And that once people have their eyes open to, hey, this isn't right. You know, I'm a human being, and
Right.
I need to be paid legally. I need to have workman's comp legally. And if I get injured on the job, I can't be, thrown out to the street and expected to, pay my own medical bills and lost wages and things like that. But there's such a stigma and a cynicism about, oh, it's the horse industry. Well, it doesn't matter.
It's the same everywhere in agriculture, it seems. You know, the people that are working at I don't want to say the bottom, but the people who are building from the bottom up, the grooms and stuff, they're the ones that often, they don't have any health care.
No, but I want to be really clear on one thing. In most states, horse jobs are not actually considered agriculture. So, because a lot of states have agriculture exceptions because it's a transient population that comes through and works, part of the year during the harvest or whatnot. Horse jobs in most states are not actually agriculture, but a lot of trainers and employers maybe think that they are. So this is an ag job, so it doesn't fall under the same regulations as, working at Target or Starbucks. Well, in most cases, that's not the case. And again, it's just another point that we need to just get really educated about the laws, not only from the IRS and the EEOC, but also from the state, because the states do vary in their employment laws as well. But every state has an employment commission that administers the laws for that state. It's super easy to find all that information. The problem is getting people to want to learn about it because it's dry, it's boring. Nobody wants to hear about it.
Well, they don't, and most of the owners and stuff, they're not aware of what's happening because they've been doing it for so long. So thank goodness you have come along to make a difference. You're the first person I've known who's actually stood up for the rights of those who are doing most of the work.
Yeah, and I have to say part of my battle is also trying to convince everybody doing the work that, hey, I don't care however many times you hear it's the horse industry. It doesn't matter. It doesn't apply. And part of it is just one of these things where, they don't want to get blackballed in the community, and they don't want to stand up for what's legally the right thing to stand up for because there's so much.
James added something here
misinformation. I know, I see that, and I hear that probably every single day. And
so
it's
were you a groom also, James? Just nod your head or turn on the mic or something. Okay, maybe not.
So, yeah, it's one of those things, if I can, it's an evolution, and it's something that I don't think I can just put out there once. I think I have to keep putting it out there and putting it out there and putting it out there.
It is with anybody that's changing.
Oh, yeah, James is a farm, barn, and property manager.
Oh, he knows then.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's a tough life we've chosen, all of us in the horse world, because it is hard work, long hours, but, we basically love what we do. Lucky us. So let me ask you a question. You know, there are people who would like to become grooms. What is the process they need to go through?
Well, unfortunately, there's no go to this school and get this degree and then start applying here. It's going to be different for everybody, largely because the horse industry is what it is, the horse industry. It's, you know, a lot of different people find horse jobs differently. But I think the underlying current is it's knowing somebody or calling somebody out of the blue, and just going for it. If you want to be a groom, start calling the trainers in your area. You never know. You also have the option of becoming, you know, a freelance, which is the legal version of an independent contractor, where you form your own company. Hopefully you know, at least become an LLC, because if you're sole proprietor, you do carry the liability risk on your own, and if you are sued by somebody who hires you, then they can go after all of your personal assets, which is why I always suggest become at the very minimum an LLC or an S Corp, so that you can run your own business. You have multiple clients sometimes. You set your own hours, you buy your own tools, you know, you pay for your own gas, but you're
asking why somebody doesn't start a grooming school for grooms.
Part of it is geography, and part of it is that nobody cares. And I know that sounds really, really cynical on my part.
It's true.
But you know, I was approached a few years ago by somebody who wanted to start a grooming school in the U.S. and they wanted to do it in California, and they wanted to buy, you know, 15 acres in California. And so, you know, you do the math at, you know, gosh, let's say 15 acres in, even outside of San Diego in the more rural parts, you know, it's maybe $500,000 an acre. And then you have to have horses come in, and then you have to have trainers, and then you have to build dorms, and then you have to have staff to man the dorms, and then you have to have staff to man the kitchen. And what it boiled down to is these grooms, their tuition would have to be $50,000 a year. Well, if you have $50,000 a year laying around, go to Harvard.
Right.
Because you will never, ever, ever make $50,000 a year as a groom. Probably not ever.
Now, it's interesting that in the racing industry, they've made it to where the grooms have to be licensed.
No, they haven't. There's a program called Groom Elite, which is a nonprofit organization that runs training seminars at the racetracks when the racetracks put the funds together to sponsor the seminars. It's a nonprofit organization. It's a 2-day course, and they can become certified as a Groom Elite, which is super. They learn amazing, amazing, life-saving things. But the racetracks have to want to bring Groom Elite in to administer the program. So some of the tracks have done it. I think they're based in Texas. So some of the tracks have done it down there. Some of the you know, things like that. So here's a question. You could find that land a lot cheaper outside of California. Yeah, totally. What about somewhere in the South? Well, you know, the other problem that you run into is it's not just the land and things like that, but the other resistances that I've gotten when I've talked to people about a certification program or an education or a school for grooms is that why would they do that when they can pay somebody $8 an hour under the table, cash, no taxes? So that's kind of the resistance, because that's just how the industry is, unfortunately. Although I think it's getting better, and I know there's lots and lots of exceptions to that rule, but the main resistance is when I pose that question to trainers and to other grooms is, well, on-the-job training is better, and sometimes the resistance comes in the form of, well, I would rather teach somebody to do it my way and or find somebody much, much cheaper. So let's see. Mine was a hand-me-down education. I learned from an old horseman who did the same work. You know, there's a lot of on-the-job training, absolutely. It's going to, of course, every rider and every trainer has a different way of doing certain things, but there's an underlying current of information that's the same for all horses. Temperature, pulse, respiration, what to do for swollen legs, how to pull a horseshoe. All of those things are going to be specific to horses, not just, you know, a specific trainer. So there is an undercurrent of information that could easily be trained. It's all on my website. And then the specifics can come from a trainer. And excuse me just a moment, my cat that I spoke of previously has pulled a cucumber off my salad plate and is now playing with it. Oh, bad cat. So then Kim had a question about wages. You know, I know grooms that in some of the bigger barns here, there's one in Del Mar, not the racetrack, a different barn in Del Mar, but you know, they must have 1,000 stalls easily, plus temporary show stalls as well. And there are grooms living in the stalls, and they make, you know, a couple $100 a week, and they get to live in a stall, and that's it. Some of the freelance grooms, depending on what you're doing, if you are a freelance groom and you are really good and highly sought after, maybe you make $150, $200 a day. If you're a braider, you can make $60 a horse, and if you can do 10 horses in a night, then you're making a lot of money. But again, those are highly skilled, highly specialized, and honestly kind of rare people to find. You're going to find 25 grooms to every one professional braider that there is. I know in Wellington there's a lot of people that go down there seasonally to work as grooms, and maybe all they do is muck stalls all day long. They've got 10 barns that they drive to all through Wellington, and all they do is muck stalls. And they might have a per piece rate or a per hour rate. Probably for that kind of work, it's a per piece rate. So there. And I think we lost Randy, so I'm just going to carry on with any other questions. All right. Carol, do you want to?
I have a question that I know, Randy, I think she was planning on asking you if you have any funny stories to share about grooming or the grooming world.
Oh, I split my pants constantly as a groom for some reason. Always when there was a trainer or an owner or somebody important, you know, because you spend a lot of your time picking feet and wrapping legs, and you're always picking feet and always wrapping legs, and sometimes your jeans just give out. And sometimes there's not enough duct tape in the world to repair that tear, but you just do what you got to do. That's why I always carry a spare change of clothes in my car all the time for always. Even now I do that. I always have extra clothes in my car, just in case.
That's a good thing to do. It is, regardless
Yes.
of what you're doing, really. Yeah. Yeah. Well, does anybody have any other questions? I know we're getting towards the end. We started a little bit late. Here's Kim has a question, I think. Did you address that one? Do you see it?
I don't see any questions about Kim, but if she wants to turn off her speaker and ask if she has any, she's welcome to.
When you get a really unruly horse, do you refuse to work on them, or do you just do the best you can? Did you answer that one already?
No, I didn't. It depends really on why he's unruly, and